President Buhari attends Eid al-Kabir's prayers in Daura, assures NYSC will not be scrapped. Foreign investment in Nigeria plummets to $5.5 billion. In international news, Trump's lawyer pleads guilty to charges of violating finance laws implicate Trump. And in sports, NFF thanks presidency, FEC, others for resolving crisis.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. President Muhammadu Buhari was in Daura on Tuesday to celebrate this year's Eid al-Kabir and was seen later personally slaughtering his ram. Members of the National Youth Service Corps recently, currently serving in Daura community, were among hundreds of people who came out to welcome him. The president promised that his administration would not scrap the National Youth Service Corps scheme as been proposed in some quarters. The president said it is better for youth to know all parts of the country than being familiar with only their states. He then donated a bowl, 10 bags of rice and $500,000 naira to the Corps members. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project has welcomed calls by Senator Abdullahi Adamu for the accounts of the National Assembly to be audited. SERAP's Executive Director Adeto Kumbo Mumuni said the probe would have to be extended to all federal government agencies and other arms of government. The group said most legislators live beyond their means and should be investigated by anti-graft agencies. It says most spenders like the Presidency, Nigeria National Petroleum Corporation, Central Bank of Nigeria and Nigeria Ports Authority must not be left out. Minister of Information, Culture and Tourism Lai Mohammed has disclosed that the whistleblowing policy has made a tremendous impact on the Nigerian economy. He says the current government has raked almost 14 billion naira from tax evaders into federal government coffers. Dividends of the policy run into billions of naira recovered from public officials. The whistleblowing policy is part of President Buhari's anti-corruption strategy. Even though Nigeria recovers billions from its whistleblowing policy, many in business and government circles are disappointed that it does not reflect in the economy. Nigeria Bureau of Statistics (NBS) has released the capital importation report for the second quarter of this year, and the findings are dismal. They show that Nigeria's investment inflows dropped by 12% to $5.5 billion from the first quarter. When compared with the investment flow for the second quarter of 2017, the figure represents a 207% drop. The NBS said this decline is a result of the reduction of portfolios and other investments. Now to other news. The Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association has warned the Senate President, Bukola Saraki, to resign his position immediately or be forced out. The national coordinator of the association says Saraki has created numerous problems for the present administration, which has affected the economic and social growth of the nation. He says Nigerians are in dire need of people who care about the masses. Quote, "We are tired of Saraki's style of leadership at the National Assembly, and we are warning him to honorably resign his position or will force him out." End quote. A soldier, a policeman and one civilian have been killed by a group of gunmen who attacked an oil exploration site in Abua Odua local government area of Rivers State. The incident happened when the gunmen suspected to be kidnappers shot at a convoy carrying some expatriates to the oil site. The policeman and soldier killed were the security escort guarding the expatriate while they worked at the oil exploration site. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling for those responsible for Sunday's killings in Malari village in Borno State to be brought to justice. Guterres condemned the killings of innocent people by suspected Boko Haram terrorists. He expressed condolences to the families of those killed. He also commended national and regional initiatives to bring peace and stability to the area and to address the root causes of the conflict. Guterres also called on the international community to increase support to regional efforts in the fight against Boko Haram. The Nigerian Medical Association in Cross River State has threatened to withdraw medical services over kidnapping of its members. The association said the decision became necessary because of increased cases of kidnapping in the past few months. The recent kidnap of a medical doctor's spouse is the second incident in what appears to be a targeted doctor's kidnap in the States in the past month. 5 doctors and 5 family members have also been kidnapped at various times and locations in the state. A situation the group says has caused great psychological and emotional distress among affected families. Meanwhile, in the Federal Capital Territory, the allegations the available hospital bed spaces now go to highest bidders. Patients are said to be hamstrung and at the mercy of hospital management and other health workers to get services. Many of the patients are said to spend hours or days at the hospitals and are said to be most often insulted and ignored by health workers. But records show the significant increase in demand for healthcare services in Abuja facilities is a result of poor state of medical facilities in neighboring states. Civil society organizations in Nigeria comprising of the Human Development Initiatives, Joint National Association of Persons with Disabilities and Center for Information and Technology Development have called on the government to raise the percentage of Universal Basic Education Intervention Fund made available for projects to support physically challenged children. The group says the issue of inclusive education for children with disabilities has become very important. It says since the federal government is saddled with such responsibility, it should conduct regular census, monitor the physically challenged children, and provide special equipment and training for them. Acting head of the United Nations Population Fund in Cross River State, Yakubu Ali, says a quarter of Nigerian women between the ages of 15 and 49 have undergone female genital mutilation. He said the figures are based on the National Demographic Health Survey of 2013. Yakubu said female genital mutilation was more prevalent in the southwest of the country, followed by the southeast. He said the NDHS 2013 also showed that 15% of Nigerian women had been mutilated. He calls on policymakers, traditional rulers and religious leaders to ensure that the Violence Against Persons law was implemented and young persons are educated from childhood to adulthood on the hazards of female genital mutilation. The Lagos State government has announced the release of 2 billion naira to offset pensioners' obligations under the contributory pension scheme. Director General Lagos State Pension Commission Folashade Ononuga says the amount represented pension monies released for the months of May, June and July. She said the governor is committed to retirees' welfare and is working to clear up accrued pension backlog. Up next, a quick trip across Africa. And much later, Trump's chickens are coming home to roost.
You are watching ANN.
MTN gives 2,000% bonus for reactivating your MTN SIM. That's right. If you haven't used your MTN SIM for 45 days or more, recharge now and get 2,000% bonus. That's right, 2,000% bonus for your first recharge of every month.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Some African stories now. Gabonese officials said on Tuesday a tanker with 17 Georgian sailors on board is missing off the country's coast. The ship is said to have disappeared from tracking screens 8 days ago. Regional military officials said the potential search area was between the Gabonese coast and the Sao Tome and Principe archipelago. The vessel is Panamanian flagged and owned by a Greek company and is said to be a 12-year-old dual-purpose oil or chemical tanker. Georgian Foreign Ministry says there were concerns for the 17 sailors on board. British maritime authorities are helping in the search operation. Local Coast Guard commander in Sao Tome and Principe says a patrol vessel with a crew of 30 has been dispatched to search for the tanker. Madagascar's Constitutional Court says a total of 46 candidates, including the incumbent president and his two predecessors, are seeking to run in the country's presidential polls at the end of the year. The court says it will now assess the candidates' eligibility and will announce on Sunday which candidates will be allowed to stand in the first round of the elections. It added that if a candidate receives more than 50% in the first round, a second round of voting will be held in December. The scheduled vote comes after an outbreak of protest that forced Madagascar's president to accept the formation of a consensus government tasked with organizing a fresh poll. A standoff erupted over proposed electoral reforms that triggered mass protests and led the Constitutional Court to order a caretaker government to organize ballots. Zimbabwe's Constitutional Court began on Wednesday hearing an opposition petition seeking to overturn the presidential election results. The Movement for Democratic Change had accused the ruling ZANU-PF party and the Election Commission of rigging the July 30 election. Emmerson Mnangagwa, Mugabe's successor, won the poll with more than 50% of Zimbabwe's first vote since the ousting of Robert Mugabe last year. Chief Justice Luke Malaba opened the televised proceedings in Harare, where the court premises were surrounded by high security. The court could throw the case out, declare a new winner, or order a fresh election within 60 days. MDC National Chairperson Morgan Kamishi told reporters they have got all the evidence to prove in court that their party won the elections. The case has been cast as a major test of the independence of the highest court, whose verdict cannot be appealed. Italy's Interior Minister Matteo Salvini has threatened to send a boatload of migrants back to Libya unless EU countries take them. Salvini told Europe to start getting serious about defending its external borders and accepting migrants. Otherwise, Italy would take them back where they came from. He said Italy had already played its part and enough was enough. About 170 migrants are aboard an Italian Coast Guard vessel that docked in Catania just before midnight, but they are not being allowed to disembark. Italy and Malta argued about whose responsibility they were after they were rescued at sea last week. Cameroon's opposition leader Joshua Oshie, who is contesting for president in October's election, has accused President Paul Biya for the mounting bloodshed in the country's separatist crisis. Dozens of people have been killed, including at least 80 soldiers and police officers, and about 200,000 people have been forced to flee their homes. Oshie said, quote, "If the President of the Republic, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, sent his troops to fire on Cameroonians, then he is solely responsible," end quote. 85-year-old Biya has ruled the country for 35 years. His regime periodically faces reports of corruption. Oshie and 7 other candidates are running against Biya in next month's election. Turkey is ramping up pressure worldwide to shut down schools close to a network it accuses of terrorism, but says it is facing unusual resistance in the Central African Republic. Preacher Fethullah Gulen's Ron Hizman group is close to the Galaxy schools in the capital, Bangui. His supporters say he promotes a progressive form of Islam. Turkey has vowed to root out Gulen's influence at home and abroad. He was blamed for the attempted coup in 2016 against President Tayyip Erdogan. Intelligence agency has staged several operations to bring back suspects as far afield as Kosovo, Ukraine, and Gabon, where 3 Turks working in education were apprehended in April. Still ahead, Trump faces jeopardy in campaign finance laws, and later, NFF thanks presidency fake.
You are watching ANN.
sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes.
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
While the world sleeps, NN News stays awake. News takes no time off. We are awake so you can sleep. We report the stories that keep you up to date, events that affect your day, your week, month, and experiences. We scour the world, bringing it to your living room. Watch NN News in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is NN News. In international news, U.S. President Donald Trump is facing jeopardy in the case of his former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, who has pleaded guilty to 8 criminal counts in campaign finance fraud. Cohen admitted to charges that included making illegal campaign contributions, detailing how he made pre-election payments to porn star Stormy Daniels and Playboy model Karen McDougal, who both claimed to have had affairs with candidate Trump. Cohen said he acted in coordination and at the direction of a candidate for federal office in making those payments. Trump had continuously denied those allegations in the past, but his former lawyer's admission now puts him in a legal bind. While Cohen's drama was unfolding in New York City, another bombshell dropped. A jury in Virginia found Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, guilty on 8 counts, including bank fraud, tax fraud, and failure to declare foreign bank accounts. Trump called Manafort a good man, but claimed the conviction was part of a witch hunt after the 2016 elections. Manafort could spend the rest of his life in prison. Microsoft says it has thwarted Russian attempts to launch cyber attacks against U.S. conservative groups. The software company said Russian hackers had tried to steal data from political organizations, including the International Republican Institute and Hudson Institute think tanks. Microsoft said the Fancy Bear hacking group had been behind the attack, saying the thwarted attack was likely a method to trick people into visiting the mimicked domains, allowing the Fancy Bear group to see and steal people's login information. The Sage domains were associated with several U.S. Senate offices and services. Russia has denied Microsoft's allegation. An Italian Coast Guard ship carrying more than 170 people it rescued off the island of Lampedusa last week has been refused permission to disembark. Interior Minister Matteo Salvini said until Italy receives assurances, the migrants will be relocated elsewhere in Europe. Migrants aboard the ship have been forced to remain at sea for 5 days. The ship had picked them up last week from an overcrowded boat 17 miles off Lampedusa after they were refused entry into Malta. Transport Minister Daniel Toninelli tweeted on Saturday that Italy never pulls back when it comes to saving human lives, but Malta's behavior once again deserves sanctions. The Coast Guard said most of the migrants are from Eritrea. The United Nations watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, says it had not seen any sign that nuclear activities in North Korea had stopped, despite its pledges to denuclearize. Referring to North Korea's official name DPRK, the agency said in a report that North Korea's continued nuclear activities are of grave concern. Pyongyang had expelled IAEA inspectors from its Yongpon nuclear site 9 years ago and has since refused to allow the agency's inspections on its territory. The watchdog said it has stepped up monitoring through open source information and satellite imagery. An 8-year-old girl is among 23 persons rescued from flooding in the Pollino National Park in southern Italy. 10 hikers had died in the Calabria port after water hit them on Monday. Local reports say rescuers found the 8-year-old girl beside dead bodies. She's quoted as saying she was in a state of shock. Officials believe the girl's parents are almost certainly among the victims. Coming up, sports. NFF expresses gratitude for ending crisis.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Drop that Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it not for your hand, that's Palasa phone.
While the world sleeps and news stays awake, news takes no time off. We are awake so you can sleep. We report the stories that keep you up to date, events that affect your day, your week, month, and experiences. We scour the world, bringing it to your living room. Watch ANN News in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, the Nigeria Football Federation has expressed appreciation to President Muhammadu Buhari for resolving its leadership issues, which allowed it to avert FIFA suspension on Monday. NFF President Amaju Pinnick, who spoke on behalf of the Executive Committee, said the position of the President, which was conveyed to FIFA by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, has convinced the World Football Governing Body that Nigeria is ready to follow FIFA's statutes. Pinnick appreciated all stakeholders who stood by the tenets of association football. He added that the immediate focus of the Federation is on next year's African Cup of Nations qualifiers, starting with an away game against Seychelles early next month. New Tanzanian head coach Emmanuel Amunike has named a 25-man squad ahead of next year's African Cup of Nations qualifier against Uganda early next month. President of the Tanzanian Football Federation, Wallace Karia, said the squad is expected to start training soon. Top striker Mbwana Samata, who plays for Belgian side Genk, and Al Hilal forward Thomas Ulumengo are the squad's biggest names. Amunike was appointed new Tanzanian coach early this month on a 3-year contract. He will be assisted by Hermit Morocco and Emeka Amadi. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and all the stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.